Adam. Bill, g'day. Peter Nottle, g'day. Stuart, g'day. Frank Ward, hello. Paul, g'day. 64 Dudley, good morning. How is everyone? Hope you're all remarkably fine. I seem to have a lot of junk. I don't know if anyone noticed. Anyway. Don't know if I've got a whole lot to share. I put out a video this week, so I'm pretty quick, pretty half-assed video, and I'm sorry about that, but it was a start. I'll try again soon. But it means there's nothing left for live stream, so forget it. No, it's all this junk, which has been in a box, which isn't good. Hey, Kevin. This stuff all needs to go in that cabinet. I haven't got a clue what to do with it, really. I guess I need to tidy some of it up and make it workable or usable. A lot of it's pretty straightforward launch bits. Most of it is launch accessories. This is the original plate. It's launch. And there's assortment of homemade and otherwise factory short drawbars and very short drawbars. Not sure about the usefulness of those at all, because they're both too short for my length. I had another one and I've actually shortened the other one up for the dividing head, and it's in the box with that. But when you buy a box of collets, you end up with all this other stuff as well. And then you've got to find somewhere to put it all. Have these two spanners. I thought they were actually engraved, F. Lorch & Co. But maybe they're not. Anyway, they fit the preload adjustment on the lathe. Hey, tea and biscuits. Kim Bazalik, g'day. This is, I don't know what this is. It's probably woodworking chuck or something. It's probably, don't know where I picked that up, but that fits too. This is probably an original backplate for a Lorch chuck. I haven't got a chuck for it, but I've got a backplate. This one come from Germany. It's fairly thin on the ground, these things. That's a 3-dog faceplate, big one. Very useful thing for putting holes in thin plates. There's nice bit of gear. It's not marked Lorch, I don't know what that is, but it's fairly nice. This one, I don't know what it is. It doesn't fit the lathe. I think it's a different thread. Someone gave me this. Don't have any particular use for it at this point. It looks like it was probably a four-jaw chuck once. So, no idea. I think it's It's inch thread, but I don't know what size. It's not inch 10 or a screw on the Lorch. Not sure about that. I have got a Keats angle plate that would go on that nicely, and that's probably where it'll end up if I think of some way to put new thread in it. That was the inspiration behind it. I don't know if it's going to happen. I think it's inch by 8. Probably it's Myford. See, I'm not sure it is Myford because the guy who had it had a Myford. I don't think it fit. Hey, DJ. So, don't know what it is, but it might get modified, and I've got a Keats angle plate that might go on it at some point. Yeah, that's what I thought. Myford is inch to 8. That's what I thought. Anyway, I might bore it out and shrink a bush in it and rethread it, something like that. And machine the slots in it in a bit and put a Keats angle plate on it. It's about that size. I think it'd be a fairly useful thing to have on the lathe. No idea where that casting is, but I do have one somewhere. Darren sent it at some point from the UK, which is very nice of him. Don't have a mill big enough to machine it as yet, but we're getting there. It's all these useful bits of Lorch that turn up occasionally. This is a bed guide with a proper T-nut. No idea what this fits. And an aftermarket wing nut of some sort. There's 2 locking plates. I think that one's genuine Lorch for underneath the bed. This one I'm not so sure about. So all this stuff needs to go in that cabinet somehow. I'm not really sure how. South Bend will be the same as Hercus, but I can't remember what it is. Not that I ever knew. Hercus is 1.5. That's more like, yeah. I mean, I'd say that's inch 8, and I'd say that it's probably, it's off some archaic English lathe, I would say. Hey, Fridge, g'day. You home yet? Good to see you. These are all stamped Lorch, I think. They're inch 10, which is Lorch thread. You can draw your own conclusions about why German precision lathe from the 1920s or 30s is inch 10, but it's better than Leubenhoek or something stupid like that. So anyway, that was the other option. I've got 3 of them. Most of this stuff come out of Poland. I've got nearly a set of these. They're ring chucks. Got a feeling they're marked, but I'm not sure where. There should be a set of 5, and they're 0.1mm increments, which stop distorted, but there's always one missing, and then the rest all get bent, which is a pity. There's 7 there. And if you pick the three ones, they're probably all the same, which is a bit of a problem. I don't know how you go about fixing this. If you have a look, these have all got bends in them. This one's just bent outwards, which isn't so bad. If you look at this one, it's bent outwards and then back inwards. And it probably should be a straight crack, because it's only got to close up 0.1 of a millimetre in theory. And you've got a complete set. They need some rust. They've been in a box for 4. Sorry about that. My internet's getting progressively worse here. I'm really not impressed with it. We should be back now. I don't think they're hard, to be honest. I think they're fairly soft. And to be honest, probably better off to make a complete set of them, because they're all a bit distorted. But I was thinking if you could clamp them up with slots in between them and then stress relieve this and let them settle down, actually make a tube that goes over them, or a sleeve that goes over them with a nut, so you can do them up nice and tight. Don't know. So if you squeeze this in here with a gap, the right gap here, the same as is down here, and squeeze this together here, they might just come right. But then they're all out of round too, and it's a bit ugly. I guess the answer is probably to grind them or machine them up one size. What's the run out? About that much, I imagine. That one's particularly bad, but some of them aren't so bad. So that's not good either, and it's been abused. So probably the answer for these is to make a new set, which is a fair bit of work, but they would be very, very useful to have. Hey, Stephen. The reason they're still sitting here is because I honestly haven't really thought about it, but they just pull in there like that, which is a pretty rudimentary sort of a system. This screws on the spindle, and then the collet should pull in. So I don't see why, if you straighten them out, that you couldn't space these nicely with shims and then brass shims and then machine these. Like, even if you use like a decent, if they're hard. Let's see how hard they are. Hey, Paul. No, that set's here, and I've got an earmark for a job, Adam. It will probably happen at some point. I don't think these are particularly hard, to be honest. Um, 50 Rockwell, and that marks them quite easily. So I don't think they're hard as such. And they're probably consumable, and they probably got modified for jobs and things like that, and they're supposed to be. But it'd be very, very nice if you could get them to actually run somewhere near concentric, even repeatable, because I'd use them a whole lot, like serious amounts. These ones are the opposite, and they're bent the other way. How would you cut the slot so accurately manufacturing between centres with a slit and saw, I think, is how they would probably be done. Or even gripped like that with the slitting saw. These are bent the other way. See, these are bent out here, and they're touching in the middle, and then they're bent on the back. They're ring chucks. They're pretty useful too. And that just goes on a mandrel like this, which goes on the spindle. And that tightens them up. But they've all been stretched because there's one missing. Same deal. You buy 3 sets and you only get a 1, 2, 4 and 6. Or 1, 2, 4 and 5, something like that. And one of the middle ones is missing. So everyone tries to make them work. But really they get distorted very easily. So that's pretty ugly. So I've been putting that off. Hey, Paul. So these are probably junk. And to be honest, I'd really like a set. So every now and again when I've got some money, I tend to look at European eBay and buy them. It's just why I've got so many all the same. However, kind of almost impossible to find. And when you do find them, they don't really work. So, I mean, the other option is to make these up with a solid shaft and a collar, and then a decent braze or silver solder weld so that they hold nicely, or even TIG them, and machine a step in the middle for a start so that you can hold them in the chuck on the inside jaws, and then machine these angles all the same and profile this off nice. Maybe. Or do you put this in a collet and machine them this way? I really don't know. I don't think slitting them's the difficult part of the whole deal. And once you've got them slit and they fit the spindle, and then you can put shims in them and clamp them up and machine the places in them pretty simple. But it's never ever that straightforward. I mean, this is 11.5 by 1 mil, this thread. And anyway, so big old diesel valve sounds like a really good idea. If someone's got any 12.5mm diesel valve stems with a head that's about 3 inches to half, 3 inches diameter, let me know. That hole doesn't go right through. They've got a centre in that end. And I reckon probably they were set up. If I had a good set, these would get used all the time. Like, seriously, all the time. If you had a set in 0.1mm increments, every single time you wanted to machine a washer or a wheel or a shim or a blank or a gear or anything else, these would just come out. I mean, they get used all the time. They're easy and simple and repeatable when they're right. So I reckon you machine one fairly big land in the end here and bore it out, so you've got something to grip on. And you make a shaft and you there, then you set it up, you center drill it, and then you machine this through here like this and all this, right? And then all that's in concentric. Then you stick them in the spindle, set up with shims, and then you machine this. I had a conversation with Stefan about it at some point, and he said, look, just use something soft rather than mess around with high tensile steel. They're not a huge big diameter, but there's a whole lot to come off here if you're going to do them in one piece. These are probably more complicated. It's also very useful if you've got something with a hole bored in it already, like a washer or all sorts of stuff, a roller or anything. And I think you'd have to do them the same way, is machine a decent stop on here before you start so you can clamp them, and center drill this end. Then you got to machine this along here as far as you can, and then bore this out on an angle and straighten them up. Then when they're in, you can guess you got to clamp some sort of a ring around them rather than shim them to get them right. And then when you clamp them up, you can put these on here. Take care, DJ. So, I mean, they're not a particularly difficult thing to do, and it's not like they've got to be repeatable in these because they're all 0.1 of a millimetre different. They're 2 millimetre increments, so you set this up at the right diameter and dial it in, and then you just go 2 millimetres bigger on the dial. That's easy. So pretty useful thing, I think, if I had a set, you know. If you've got an odd piece that you want to machine the outside of to match a circle, be a good thing. So take care, Craig. Gosh, that was quick. Craig's on a promise, obviously. I can say that about him. Anyway, I haven't really given it a lot of thought, except that rather than try and fix them, it's probably easier to get some bar at some point and make some new ones. There was an article in Model Engineers Workshop a couple of years ago, which I saved religiously. It'll be upstairs somewhere in the library, on making them, and that gentleman actually fabricated them out of 2 pieces. He made a shaft, and then he bored a bush and he seated them in there and run a nice silver solder line all the way through. And from there, he machined them up. So that might be an option too, if you could be bothered. Got a bandsaw and thread cutting attachment now. I could probably do those sort of things if I was focused enough. Machined these, which are very, very similar. John Creasy actually did a lot of the work on. I did the threads on these on each end. There's a thread to match the chuck. That probably unscrews if you put it on the lathe. These are D2 and they're fairly nice. But these had some extra challenges which these won't have. Like there's a hole all the way through. Pretty impressive, really. I thought that was impressive. I'm not sure how hard they actually ended up. These have got a spindle guard on them built in. And they just clamp up on a taper like, basically it's the same taper as this. With a keyway in there, all those sort of things. So it is definitely doable. But the other way to get them somewhere near concentric is to do them in pairs and put a centre in each end and in between centres, and then you can machine all of one side. If you did them like this, say, machine all of one side, you can flip it round and repeatedly get the other side too, and do all of them like that, and then cut them in half. Then you've got to somehow make these so that you can, I guess you put them in the spindle and tighten them up, and then you can machine these so that you can grip them on the other side. You don't have to, I guess. If you put them in the spindle, you machine most of this out and then split them and close them up. So I'm just thinking out loud here, but that's probably another way you could do it, is use a piece that long and put a bar right through it and braze them all the way through, and then you just chop it. If you could get a braze weld or a decent silver solder weld all the way through, it'd probably be quite strong. I don't think they require a whole lot of force on them to actually be any good if you've got all the right sizes and you've got the piece that, if you're careful with them. Bill's had a big day, he's starting to get silly. There's a box of collets that Adam sent. We ought to go through them too. We ought to have a look at them. I know where they are. How awesome is that? Most of this stuff doesn't actually fit in these drawers. That's another issue. Let's put all that away. How successful was that? Not particularly well, but it's all put away. This is actually a good old Pratt chuck. Hey, Rust Knox. I think if you made those collets up out of a bit of EN24, a bit of even 4140 is probably overkill. Stefan said P2, which is a fairly soft malleable tool steel. We'll see about that. Mike from Cornwall, good day. Rust Knox, good day. Anyway, this is a good old Pratt chuck of uncertain vintage, right? This is ancient. It's a It's a bezel chuck, which is a fairly nice thing usually if this wasn't of ancient sort of specifications, and one chuck or one jaw wasn't put in. I'm feeling the jaws are in the wrong way around. That one's sticking out more than that one or that one. Anyway, that one's sticking in and that one's sticking out and that one's flush. Okay, this is a bezel chuck off something. It's good old Pratt. It's 100 years old, probably more. Picked it up to put up on my little wood lathe, but it's not really ideal for that. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that. But every now and again I fish it out and have a look at it. It's a nice bit of engineering, but it wasn't top of the range really when it was new. That's a bronze pulley, which belongs on the overhead drive of my lathe. Don't know why it's not actually on there, but anyway, that's where that comes from. And there's a little Bernard 3-jaw chuck that come from Matty. That's 3/4 fine thread, which goes on the little Lorch lathe. Now, I haven't looked inside this box since I moved, so it's a bit of a time capsule. It's a bit dusty. Sorry, Bill. Apologise for this, but haven't got a knife for opening boxes specifically as yet. So we're going to use the Gerber. Woohoo! What a bunch of interesting assortment of stuff. Similar sort of stuff, but a bit smaller. This is all 10mm stuff, right? Which I think is probably, to be honest, Derbyshire. There's a completely stuffed Lorch 10mm collet. Look at that. Some drawbars. There's a taper adapter for some sort of spindle, maybe. And some sacrificial sort of set up chucks, probably off a Derbyshire or some sort of instrument lathe. Thought that might have fitted the little Lorch, but it doesn't, so I've got no idea what that is. Poulter, Derbyshire, something like that. And these are all sort of basically emergency collars that have been used for one job, really. There's 3 or 4 of those. They've obviously been made to fit one thing. There's one that's probably never been properly machined. It hasn't got thread on it yet, and it hasn't been finished. So we've got a 10mm lathe over there. However, I don't think Derbyshire collets will actually fit it, even with a longer drawbar. I don't think that's really the answer. Because, if you have a look at this, check out this quality drawbar. If you screw this in, right, this diameter here on the drawbar is bigger diameter than the collet. While that's a very reasonable condition collet, the drawbar has to be bigger. And I think that the Lorch spindle is 10 millimeters all the way through. So these all need a smaller diameter. I think Lorch 10 millimeter collets are 8.5 millimeters on the thread. 8.5 by 1.0 or something like that. Some stupid thread, the same as the big ones. If we have a look at this bent one, see it's a smaller diameter there, so that the don't know what that's out of, but it's not the right one anyway. It's not. That's not. So maybe there is I don't know. Maybe I'm talking through my hat. Maybe they are like that. Not sure. I never tried it. But the theory was to use these as a system on the little Lorch with a longer drawbar, but we're not sure whether that's actually going to happen. JP Woodwork, g'day, welcome. Also in here is a lot of these. That's a 8mm or a WW or Derbyshire Webster Whitcomb style collet. And most of these are probably reasonably tidy. There's a proper 10mm Derbyshire collar. There's another 10mm Derbyshire collet. There's some drawbars. And there's quite a few of these. So I haven't really looked. But this should go in an adapter, which is why it's got this nut on it. I'm not sure if I saw an adapter here or not. Probably not. But generally there's an adapter that looks something like that, right? Don't know what's in here. Right? And you screwed this together in the adapter up nice and neat and tight and nice. And then the adapter went in a bigger collet lathe, so you could use these little collets in the bigger lathe, which is why those nuts are on there. But don't know if I've got that bit or not. Don't know what that is. Anyway, it's a box of assorted stuff. And probably if I get that little 10mm Lorch going, it might be quite useful. Could be Pultra too. Paul, you're probably the expert on things like that. If you know what they are, let us know. If you've got something they fit and you want to swap it for a lot of useless collets, anyone, hit us up, because you might have some of these. If you got some of them in half decent condition, I'd be up for that. But nobody does. Anyway, there's some drawbars and bits and pieces and stuff, and a very useful box of things to have. There's an adapter for a bigger collet, which looks like a C3 or something, maybe. It's got a 2-stage taper in there. Might be a C3. Don't know. Might be a C3 to Morse taper adapter, something like that, maybe. Don't know. Anyway. Hi, Nigel. Go Create a Hobby Machine Shop. G'day. seriously, they're too good to throw out, and that's what the person who gave them to me, thanks Adam, probably thought as well. And I really appreciate it, but not sure of what they probably are. And I owe you a letter anyway, Paul, so one day I'll get to it, promise. It's probably not that far away. I've been posting things recently, so I'm getting further down the list. Promise. Look, I've got a Fluke meter, right? This is one of those like light bulb moments when I found out something that I thought I should have had and never had, and now can't live without, probably. And I'm sure if you buy a decent meter, it comes with one of these. But if you've got to buy one separately, because mine didn't come with one, they're kind of crazy expensive. I didn't even know such a thing existed. But if you want to hang your meter up and so you don't drop it down the hole, which you've all done, that's pretty cool. There's a link in the description anyway if you want to download one. Adam designed it. Really nice job. I test printed some of them. But if you hit the link up, I'll make sure Adam gets some cash for it. Well, not cash, but they're listed anyway. STL's downloadable. Oh, it's pretty exciting. Nigel, I've got one of your business cards on my desk, and every time I sit down, I think, you haven't seen an update on that for a while. I don't feel so bad now, but if you're going to start updating video things, this stuff's about to get real. Have a look. This is the spindle off the little Lorch lathe. How cute's that? We've got a half decent collet there. It's got a bit too much. I don't know whether it's a different angle. It probably isn't actually. And I was wrong because that drawbar will go. That'll fit in there. And if we screw those together, they might screw together. That one's stripped. And put this here. It's very close to the right length. So, very similar system. The only difference is that these collets have a keyway from there to there. A 10mm Lorch collet, which I don't have, but it's about that long, has a keyway from there to there. So the pin for the keyway is back in here. And I don't think that that drawbar goes through deep enough to seat on here. So you've got to bore that out to make this work and put another pin in it. And that's a lot of hard work. However, the upside is that a set of these, if you're feeling really rich, are available from Sherline reasonably. Not crazy money for a decent set of these. So then you've got a set of collets for a little lathe. Who is Adam? Adam Carmichael. Adam, shout out your channel. He's here in the chat. He's been a friend for a long time. Good mate, lives in Sydney. CARNEEKI. Carnegie Import and Export, I think. Mail order from Russia. I'm not going to say anymore. That's a bit rude, sorry. So there's not much wrong with this little spindle here at all. It's got the makings of a pretty tidy lathe, to be honest. Could do with some oil. And it could do with some tightening up, but this lathe's probably going to be fairly nice when it's going, but it needs some work. And just every single project I start at the moment, I get to a certain point and think, or even a start on or go to continue, I get to a certain point and think, gosh, I've still got to pay rent this week, and I'm sort of feeling like I'm not going to spend a lot of money on extra bits for this. So we'll go look at something else. That's kind of how it works. But I would very, very much like to have this up and running, to be honest. Because pretty decent little lathe. No wear in it much. Nice tailstock. It's got some issues with the compound that needs fixing, but we're probably down to sort that out too. Seriously no idea, but the compound and everything's there for it, so it's just a matter of probably putting it together, giving it a tidy up. Mounting it on a bench, getting a sewing machine motor, variable speed, decent sewing machine motor on it, and repairing a few bits and finding some chucks and collars for it. But it's sort of a never-ending tunnel, that one. So Lorch 10mm collets are pretty much impossible to get. All L series Lorch lathes come with 10mm collets. They're a long series, basically a 3/4 size collet that looks like this. They're sort of that long, and they're 10mm at 12.5, but basically the same thing. So not a huge deal probably to make a set of them. I've made collets before. Many years ago I made collets that were this size. And the way you do that is cut a double length piece and center hole each of them and set them up between centers with a drive dog machine one end with this as a reference, this end, faced end as a reference, machine this with the taper and everything, and spin them around, or do them, if you've got them between centers, you do them all like you do this size here on all of them, turn it around, do the other one, put him aside, get another one, do 10 of them at a time if you like, 20 of them, whatever. Then machine these down each end, then 3 cut each end, then put the tapers on them, and then you can split them in half. Probably also before you do that, you could set them up and between centers in the dividing head, you can slit and saw and slit them in 3 places through the middle. Then you cut them in half, and you bung them in the spindle, do them up with a shim in each one, machine the end of them off, face it off, radius, or whatever you want to do, and then you drill and bore them. If you want a bit of back clearance, then when you've got them all in one piece, before you put a centre hole in here, you do that first. So they're not incredibly difficult to get good and accurate. The smaller ones are fairly difficult to ream or machine, but if you're just making a machine spindle or something bigger than this, they're really not a difficult thing to do. Don't be afraid of that job. I mean, you think that's a bit scary, but don't be afraid of that job, because really if you do them between centers and you've got a repeatable machine, you kind of minimize the error, because you're machining everything concentric to the 2 centers, one on each end, one out here and one out here, and they've got to be all these various intervals and machine operations have all got to be concentric, because they're running between centers. And then when you put them in the machine and tighten them up in the drawbar with your brass shims, then when you machine them off, you've got basically a blank surface to drill and ream, or to bore, or whatever you want to do, and then you've got a fairly reasonable workable collet. And it's not a big deal. For a long time, that's kind of what you did if you had a lathe with these sort of collets, because they really weren't available for about 40, 50 years. And you can probably cylindrical grind them and all those sort of things that may or may not be interested or important. But honestly, get them close to size and rub with a bit of emery tape and a good finish with a decent tool. You're probably going to find that you're going to get them anywhere, like as good as you can find second-hand ones, if not better, and probably be better than you can buy anything out of China. Without a whole lot of, it's not a big deal to do that. You also put your keyways in sort of when you're doing your slots, or before you do your slots, just with a slit and saw from the end. In fact, I'd probably put these in my dividing head before I tighten one end down so that the other end's out, and put the slot in it, then turn it around and do the other one. I'm not sure about that, but that might be how I did them. But I think you'll find that you'll get collets that are as repeatable as anything else you can get anywhere in this day and age, in your price range, without a whole lot of effort. Anyway, there we go. There's me on collets, theoretical collets, yeah. I don't mind milling in the lathe. Some lathes are suited for it better than others. And various manufacturers had ways of getting around it. Lorch had an awesome horizontal milling attachment and a vertical milling attachment. they actually had a horizontal milling table, adjustable height horizontal milling table. Which works sort of like with a sign plate. You jack one end of it up to give you closer or further away from your spindle, and then the table was on that axis, and that went under in front of the spindle. It was about 200 by 150. I've seen it in books. I've never ever actually seen one in reality, and I've never even seen an auction for one. I've never seen a picture of one. I had until recently, and I sold a milling attachment, a American one, a palm green vertical slide for my lathe, or for any lathe. Not a particularly good thing, I didn't think. Maybe the Myford one's better. I have seen some really nice vertical slides, and things like Potts milling spindles and things like that, which are really quite good. And Schaublin made some really awesome stuff, and Lorch made some really nice vertical slides, but they're out of my price range. The Myford, of course, has dovetails on the compound, and if you watch Blondie Hack's latest serial on building an oversized steam engine, which is, mate, she's crazy, that girl. I don't know why she would even contemplate taking on something that big with her equipment, but she seems to be doing okay with it. She has a lot of interesting tips for getting things repeatable on small machines, the inadequate machinery. So that's where I'm at. About the time I had to move, I missed out on a BCA. I'm still a little bitter about it, but I know where it is and I know who owns it. And at some point in its life, it may still turn up here. But these could easily be BCA, probably more likely to be BCA collets than anything. I don't know, I haven't got a clue. The ones in this box. But you can do some pretty capable stuff even in a tool holder on a tool post in a lathe. As long as you've got lock solid, you've got sharp cutters, and you think about which way you're spinning and which way you're climb cutting and all that sort of stuff, you can do some pretty good work that way. I've done it too. At some point there's a heist planned. Yes, it's sort of how it is. I will, at some point, be able to work a deal for that. But then I've got to have somewhere to put it, so there's that too. And a new milling machine's probably equally as good or better, to be honest. Decent rotary table on that's probably a better answer. A better way to spend money. Anyway, so that's the update. I guess everyone saw that video this week. Probably you did. I really appreciate you looking. It's been way too long coming. That's fairly common. You see, Model Engineering magazine for many years, milling machines were kind of a luxury that most people didn't have. Look at this. How good is that, hey? How nice is this? It's a start anyway. That one's upside down. Designed like that. Go away, Dan. Just move. Take a step back from the crazy pills. Does anyone know about these brown built file cabinets, right? I need some information. Right. What I would like to do is take this centerpiece out. Now, it seems to be somewhat loose compared to the rest of it, but I don't know what's holding it in place because I can't seem to find it. Maybe it's attached at the back. It seems loose at the front. I can take this cover, this piece off the front here, right? This just pulls off. This one's actually off. That's the full one. So all that holds this in place, gosh, these are ugly. I'd like to get some decent handles for these, and probably like 6 matching ones might be really flash. Don't know if I find something that centres. I reckon they've eventually been in here and someone's put these on, and they're kind of in the way because when I put that board through, it lines up nicely with those screws. So I'd also like to probably knock these rivets out and take these off. And give these a coat of paint and put a brass plate on here with what's written in them. That's sort of, I'm thinking this. It may never happen. But if you pulled them down and gave them a coat of paint, you put it back together pretty easy. That's just got 2 pop rivets, one here and one here. Like sealed, just ordinary rivets, which is all that holds that in place. And that just clips in like that. So there you go. Hey Chip. Alistair, g'day. I'm sorry to hear that. I've had it. Hope you're feeling better soon. But yeah, nice new shop. This middle one would be nice to pull out of there. I don't know. Don't know what's involved in that. And put a full-size drawer through there, probably with timber in it and a cutout. I could build up some plywood this thick and put cutouts in it for all the bigger chucks and things. And paint them all up and get it somewhere looking like this, because that's really what I want. That's the way I want my gear stored. It's a long job. Anyway, there you go. It's very nice having able to hang a meter up. Anyway, that's kind of all the stuff that's been happening. Gosh, we're an hour in already. I don't know what happened there. That's all the stuff that's happened here this week, which feels like progress, but I think it's just procrastination as normal. These are good. If you get a chance to procure a set of these, you should. They're awesome. Probably should buy a set and put aside just in case we have a tool making competition at some point. But you didn't hear that here, and it probably won't happen for another 6 months. But it might be a cool thing to do. Otherwise, don't know really. There was another. Excuse me. There was another cabinet come too, with some tin shelves in it, and they had plywood on them to stop them getting dents if you're putting heavy crap on them. So I kind of cut the plywood up to make the shelves for that one. Got the biscuit joiner out and did an absolute mess of these because plywood's too expensive to waste. So I actually joined that one with the biscuit joiner and some glue. So I can sand that back, and I've got a bit that I can chop that's long and wide enough for the two spaces. Probably not wide enough to go right across, but that's one bit. And this is the bit off the ends of the bits of plywood I had. There's another bit. Don't know if it's particularly good, but it'll probably sand up all right. And that's probably wide enough to get a whole size one out of it. So that'll give us, and I've got two more up there. That means I only need enough for two more drawers. And probably I've got bits and pieces kicking around here that'll do the job. Hello, Look Creations. Matthew, good day. Yeah, boxes of bits are what we're good at. We tend to be experts at that. I still haven't sent you an email, Matt. It's good to see you, but I'm still seriously pretty keen. So I apologise for that. Hope it's not sitting there in your way. We'll be in touch. Anyway, that's kind of that. A bit of a wrap, I guess. That's kind of what's happening. There's a bracket I made for a fancy motorbike. It's pretty ugly, really. But I actually welded that. It's the first time for a long time that I've actually done any welding. It's actually got two short welds on it rather than the hole in the middle. It only looks like a hole. Please be aware of that when you're judging me. Anyway, apart from that, don't know, I might nearly call it a night. We've been dribbling here for an hour and 10 minutes. It's not a bad effort. Congrats to Alistair on his new workshop. If you haven't had a look, go and check it out. It's got a pit, which I'm a bit jealous about. If I had that much extra space on top of this with a pit down the middle of it, it'd be very, very difficult to sort of I don't know. I'd be thinking about projects I shouldn't be anyway. Alistair, yeah. I don't know. I'd probably buy something that requires oil changes or something. What is it, BCA? BCA, British. Oh my gosh, what does BCA stand for? BCA made jig borers, which are, they made a small range of jig borers. They made other things as well. They made milling machines and things like that. But the jig borer is probably what they're most famous for. They made, let's Google that and have a look at it. See here, got a lot of fine text. But if we have a look, that's a BCA jig borer. Knackler's Workshop has one. Not sure what model his is. I guess it's a later one like that. Some of this early stuff is fairly hard to find now. And it's limited at best, but some of the later ones were pretty flash. Never thought to see what sort of collets they take, measure these up. But BCA tended to make some fairly nice stuff as far as jig borers go. So there we go. Hey, Wazza. I wouldn't. Here's a heads up, right? Now, no matter how crazy you think I am, I'm not at this point crazy enough to restore a Land Rover. So it's one thing I wouldn't use an inspection pit for. I'm just putting that out there. Some people do tackle that sort of stuff, but Kimberzelli, thanks for joining in. The local steam railway, that's a very slippery slope, but I'm a little bit jealous about that. DJ's back. Anyway, that's where we're at. That's what's happening. That's the update for this week. I might try and get a little video like that out every week for a bit and see if I can get back into the swing of it, because I really feel a bit not particularly comfortable or confident on recorded video. I don't know. I'm not good at that anymore. It's a bit strange. I need to get some practice. A gearbox and transfer box. Hope everything's okay. I guess you did have one. But I'm sure you'll sort it out. I mean, you've got a firewall now, and you never had that panel before. Don't know if I can see that link, but it'll probably be up on Discord, and we'll have a look at some point. Anyway, there's some links down the bottom. My link tree, which is not very exciting. There's all the things, and there's a Discord link in that, I think, if you want to keep chatting. But really appreciate anyone who tunes in. Anyone who's got any idea what these collots are? I put this shout out every now and again, and sometimes I get lucky. But anyone who sees anything that looks like this, that's got F. Lorch written on it, or Lorch, or Lorch Schmidt, or Wolf Yarn, or F. Lorch and Co., or just Lorch. I think this one says F. Lorch. If you can see that, I think so. Yeah, F. Lorch. Anyone who has or sees, or they're 12.5mm diameter, anyone who sees any, hit me up, because I've sort of really still got a few missing. Some of the common ones I use all the time are okay, and I have them, but this is really bad. This is an 8mm one, and this is dead, poor thing. It runs reasonably concentric, but you want to be taking a bit of material off to get everything cleaned up. I'd very much like a new 8mm. There are some on UK occasionally, but they're a bit pricey, and freight and stuff too. They should be available in fractional and metric sizes and in 0.1s of a millimetre, and then they were available too in 16th fractures, I think. So it's a lot I haven't got, but they're a small range on them, so it's very useful to have a range. Anyway, Paul's off. I should be off too. We've procrastinated that long enough. Appreciate you guys joining in. Really awesome to catch up with everyone. You've got to put your hand up and say, hey, look, I got a new video out this week. It's awesome. And we'll all go and look at it when we're finished. Thanks. There's a reason I'm holding off. I will touch base with you, but there might be, I'm not even going there. Anyway. Take care, and talk to you soon. Be kind to each other, and I might go and chat on Discord for a bit, maybe. We'll see how we go. Turn the lights out here and go upstairs anyway. Stuart's got a new video coming up. That's awesome. He needs to publish it though. We'd love to see it. And Dan has too. Dan's got a new video coming up. Can't wait to see. Righto, I'm out, and we'll catch you next week.